Hello, everybody, and welcome to podcast number 73 of the Gordon and Charisse Show. And we are so excited to be back with you in 2022. And no, we're not repeating 2020 two times over. That's what some people are saying. We are in a brand new year with a brand new story, a brand new way to look at life in different perspectives. And we want to continue to infuse hope and life in your journey. When you have a journey of pain, sometimes you feel lost in the middle of it. But we just want to be a source of encouragement and a map to lead you to greater places so that your story connects with something far bigger than what you're experiencing right now. And that something is God. And honey, today's topic, I'm so excited about. You know, I put in all the research and the hours.
You sure did. Charisse, let me ask you a question. What did you have for breakfast this morning?
A lot of coffee.
Because you just took over the first few minutes of the podcast, and I'm sitting here just kind of mesmerized.
You are, aren't you?
By what you're saying.
I'm all charged up.
You are. This is 2022. And this is actually our second season with the podcast. So we'll keep with the numbers. 73 is a great number to start with. And let's go ahead and kick it off. And today's message is, and you came up with this, 5 ways to change your pain story. So kicking off the new year.
Yes.
You know, I know a lot of programs and franchises are basically trying to help us with weight loss and changing habits this year. And here's a great way to have a better life for 2022. I think we need to start out with really some 5 easy ways to make changes with your life.
And they might not be easy, but I think we've talked about it in last year's podcast. I can't believe we can talk about this. Last year's podcast at this time, we talked about how New Year's resolutions, you know, do they really work? And I think that something that anybody that is going through stuff can identify with is they have a story. And that story is something that they're telling themselves repeatedly. There's a story that is going on in that person's mind. And maybe connecting to your story is a lot easier than trying to go outside of it and get some random resolution that might be adding one more thing to your plate. We don't want to add more heaviness to your plate. I think the point of this show today is to make your load lighter as you journey through things that are very hard to deal with.
Okay, I might feel a little differently than you.
Okay,
I agree with you, but I think part of the message today is this. Mm-hmm. It's time to change.
Sure.
It's time to make those changes.
I think, though, if somebody is separating their story from like this random resolution out there, they're disconnected. So being connected to your own story is a very good place to start.
Okay.
That's my point.
That's your point. Let's get started with the warm-up, because a lot of people that write us, they'll say very complimentary things, and some people think that we have perfect lives, you and I. And
they don't see the backstory, do they?
Some of the backstory, we're going through the same things like many other couples who deal with pain, or if they're not even dealing with chronic pain, we're dealing with a whirlwind of chaos and misinformation and instability in this world today, okay? Every nation is. This is a global phenomenon. We have enough with COVID and everything else.
Well, let's bring it back to you.
Of course, Charisse, we can do that.
You're way outside of the line here.
Well, I'd like to say this. There is some power in contrition, okay? In other words, when you really are having a posture of remorse and repentance, and you know that you're going to regret something later. We had something happen to us during the holidays, and it rarely happens, but I was at my max one day.
Well, let's talk about this. We actually had just shot a podcast, and we were in a really good place that morning. A lot of energy. It was a beautiful morning, And we had a little bit of unseasonable, warm Colorado weather. So it just felt like we needed to break up our schedule just a little bit and have a date, like just have a lunch date and be together. So I was so excited to, for me, the buildup was, this is the reward for being with you and doing all of these podcasts and sharing life with you. But we can't forget to share that intimacy with each other, even if it's just going on a quick lunch date and just being together.
Right. And during the lunch date, we were also having the precursor to all these winds that were developing, these 100-mile-an-hour winds. Mm-hmm. And my body was so sensitive to it. Mm-hmm. I had pain literally it felt like it was coming out of all my pores of my body. My legs were burning. I had visual blurriness, ringing in the ears. I had a massive headache. It just kept getting worse and worse during lunch.
And you weren't talking about it. You were trying to not be the center of attention.
Right,
on that.
Right. And a lot of people can relate when you're suffering from bouts of pain, additional pain, and sometimes you reach the point where there's a maximum limit to what you can handle. You're at your maximum, and sometimes it's even surpassing your maximum coping level. It's easy to take your frustrations out on someone else. And I was taking some frustrations out on you. And I think the hardest thing to do when you're dealing with pain, because you're not asking for pain, pain is just coming into the situation. It's hard to say, I am sorry to the one that you're hurting. Mm-hmm. And you're looking at it thinking, well, I'm not hurting you that much. Look what I'm dealing with. It feels like you're perpetuating some of this. I'm already at my max. I'm explaining it to you, but it's getting worse and worse and worse. But when you get to the point of saying, I am sorry, and I know how difficult it is when you're dealing with pain, but when you can do that and make that declaration, even in massive distress mode, even when things do not seem like they're wrong on your part, you reach a point where there's power to those words, and it's almost like you line up to that. You line up to that posture of, I'm going to make a change. I'm going to start in humility. I'm going to be the first one to say I'm sorry. Pain was part of the process. I can't take it personally. I must have personalized it out on Charisse. That's not really what I want to do in the long term. And
I went from feeling very smashed at that lunch date to being overwhelmed that you connected to your story. You connected to that pain, not in a way to connect to it to create more trauma, in that moment. You connected with it saying, this is the source. You're not the source. But that I'm sorry came after you honestly took a nap. You had to come home. You had to lay down. And when you woke up, I think it just, it jarred you. And when you said that to me, the walls that I had built up from the beginning of lunch to the end of lunch, all of the walls just came tumbling down.
Right.
And that was healing for me, because I don't want to have walls up between us. I don't want pain to be the wall that divides us in even sometimes the smallest things. And it was such a small thing.
It really was.
But But it's so weird how the temptation can be to build up big walls over small things. So yes, your act of saying I'm sorry, and Gordon, it's that's been a journey in the struggles together. That's been something that I've seen you really and truly just man up to, like saying I'm sorry. It's powerful. And it's
going to be powerful for a lot of other people if they really follow course with this. Mm-hmm. Okay?
I think so.
So, but let's get on with the message. The message today, and I want to try to hit this for our first podcast this year. Okay,
this is powerful stuff coming up.
Let's just go 5 ways to change a pain story. Number 1, I would say this: commit to inner change. Okay, in other words, in order for transformation to really happen in your life, you need to make a rock solid decision to commit yourself entirely to these mighty changes you want to make. Now, they might start out as small, but they will grow into mighty changes. And one thing I've noticed, and the questions that I get are normally, how do we make the external changes first? I would say to someone, make the internal changes first. And for a lot of people that really want the power of transformation for 2022, dedicate yourself to God. And it's a moment by moment commitment. We just shared the I am sorry story. That's a moment by moment commitment to a marriage, to transformation, to glorifying God with our habits and behaviors. It's a moment by moment scenario. And instead of looking at pain as causing the large walls to come up, sometimes pain helps us to keep our eye on the ball, to keep running the race of life on a moment by moment basis.
So true. And I think it keeps you, it really, if there wasn't the catalyst of pain, you wouldn't be committed to that inner change.
That's right.
What would you have to change?
Right.
If there is zero pain.
Right.
If we're looking for a zero-free pain existence, it's not going to happen.
Right.
You know?
Or a zero-free deficiency or insufficiency.
But that inner change, we've talked about it. God has created a universe inside of us, like a universe of, there's just unexplainable things going on in our inner world that makes up our mind, that makes up the substance of who we are. And so that inner change, that's not a small thing to say. That's, and you may not even, and people, when you're making that commitment, you are not going to fully know. None of us fully know what that means. But just start.
Just start. Now, people have said, okay, now how do I get, the questions are, how do I get on the inside of myself to make those changes? I have a faith in God. I believe in God. Changes aren't happening within me. Okay, well, that process takes time. But you can also make physical changes that definitely will have an impact on making inner changes. And what I've seen is this, just something simple. It might be consistent exercise. And if you can't walk, maybe it's upper body exercise, moving your arms and doing different stretching. But just consistent exercise creates a new mental discipline in who you are. And that starts to affect the inside of how you process things. It starts to curb away the idea of compulsive behaviors. It starts to take away things and creates essentialism. What's important in my life? It puts you on a focus to move forward. We saw this simply with the treadmill. And by the way, folks, I'm going to be on that treadmill. You're on that treadmill. We're doing exercises every day, and I'm doing it through pain, actually. Okay?
But it didn't start by you. I mean, it started with committing to the interchange first.
It's absolutely.
So I think people have to understand that.
But this is a way they can also have interchange, and we're talking about 2022. Now's the time to get started. So if you're going to walk a mile each day. Pray to God. Process what's going on with pain. Find the deeper meanings. Eliminate fear in your life. Trust in Him more. All of those things affect interchange, but you can also be doing some physical things that also have an impact on your interchange. Now, how do you know when you're moving forward in transformation? How do you know when you're experiencing, I started at point A with my life, I'm dealing with inner change. I'm making even some physical changes. How do I know I've moved to point B?
That's a good question.
Okay. I would say this. When you start to see yourself as who you really are, all the fluff is taken out. You know, we've had a friend discuss with us that he mentioned that I think when you get to a place of boredom, that's when you start to discover who you are. Sometimes there's a place of boredom in that discipline that you have to carry through new habits. Okay? When you start to see who you are, and then you can even acknowledge the positive changes in your own life. When you start to acknowledge those, there's a connection between what's happening in your inner person and how it relates to your outer. That's when hope becomes replenished. When you sense the cup of your life is starting to overflow with hope, you're going to see God in that picture. And you're going to see, hey, this must be the new life they keep talking about. This must be that new thing. This must be the meaning behind what suggests to everyone of being a new creation. This is fantastic. Okay? So number 1, I would commit to interchange. Why don't you start us on number 2?
Well, we've talked about this a lot, and even recently, but get started.
Yes.
And sometimes our biggest battle is right at that starting line. That's where defeat wants to come. But the truth is, start. Don't quit.
And I would say this. Here's what a lot of people do. And I'm one of those people that likes to be prepared, likes to have my ducks in order before I get started with something. Well, sometimes when you get started, don't wait until you're entirely ready to get started. Sometimes that day never comes.
Well, or, and how I relate to that in watching you get started, you can't wait for a pain-free day.
No.
To start living your life and to get going. You literally have to move through the pain. You have to start whatever new endeavor that is on your heart to begin. You have to start it, and you realize you're going to be starting it in pain.
And that's very difficult. I totally get it. But I also know this law. I've seen this spiritual law in my own life. When I volunteer and take the initiative to make a change, to start making that change, to start walking out with focus and discipline, I usually see a lot of gain. But if I delay those steps, it's more compulsory. In other words, it becomes an obligation and it becomes enforced on me because either I've lost more health or now someone else has to have a voice of authority over my life to tell me what to do. Okay? And then what happens is I'm not the one that has the freedom. I'm not the one setting it up. I'm not the one sharing in the creative process with God as it moves into transformation. I end up falling into a system. Okay?
So how do you stop doing that?
You start volunteering to make those decisions, to take the initiative to make some changes for your life. Okay? Let's go to number 3. This is one of your favorite. It's entitled Promises. Okay?
I love it.
What do you have to say on that?
Well, I think that we can't move into any type of transformation or change unless we have a promise to hold on to. Because that is where the wellspring of hope is within promises. And sometimes the promises we've made to ourselves have let us down. Like our bodies can let us down. Our emotional well-being can let us down. So promises have to, I believe, they have to go beyond us. We have to look outside of us to find a true promise that will never be broken. Because we can't even keep our own promises sometimes. But that promise, the promise that will never be shaken, is the promise of who we are in Christ. who we are as an absolute loved child of God, no matter how we feel, no matter how broken, how crushed, how disconnected, how separated. God is not separated from us in those times. He loves us. And the promise of God's love is the one thing, even in my own life, when I'm dealing with tough emotional states, if I don't connect to God's promise, I cannot connect to any type of forward motion.
Yeah. Well, let's also think of promises in the sense of the topic that we're talking about, 5 ways to change your pain story. Okay? I've seen this in our lives. Because he does have those eternal promises of redemption. Mm-hmm. Okay? He also in Scripture encourages us to become partakers of his divine nature. In other words, participate in who he is. And those promises he sets up in Scripture, and we've covered that on another podcast, there's at least 163 promises. What he shows us is this: I am providing a guidepost with my promises. Mm-hmm. So when you're walking, you're not walking without vision. You're not going to perish along the path of transformation.
That's good.
Those promises move us into him. It helps with that inner change. It helps with changing our mindset, and it moves us past fear. Now pain is going to have many doors of more pain. But God also brings us doors of promises that might have painful trials, but we're also going to have redemptive back into the story.
And I've said it before, but we can't limit our life to the size of the pain that we're in, or there will never be change. Like if life is limited to the size of the pain, why would you need to hold on to any promise? But truly, I was reading it this morning in a devotional, and imagine if your life is like a dot, but God is a circle around your dot. If we're calling God in and trying to control him and control our pain by putting him into the dot that we're in, that's reducing God. But God is all around us because he's like the big circle around our dot. So a promise, for me, the promise of God takes us out of our little dot and moves us into that more spacious place, to that place where God's love that's a circle envelops us. There's a bigger place to take the pain into his realm of promises.
Sure there is. And then what happens is, okay, in that spacious place you're talking about, God's promises carry us and transmute our desires. Mm-hmm. In other words, it's not just desires to get rid of the pain. It's desires to be connected with him. And that desire is a place of inner healing. And that desire is a place where we grow in love for him.
I love it.
Okay, because we're taken out of a very, very centralized, small perspective about what we think pain is about and what healing's about. Mm-hmm. God moves us in a whole different sphere. Okay? So let's go to number 4. Mm-hmm. So number 1 was, son of a gun, commit to inner change.
Yeah.
Number 2 is get started. Make those voluntary choices to get started. Number 3 is promises. Let promises carry you to a larger space in God. Mm-hmm. Number 4, discipline. You know I like this one.
You love this word.
I love it.
And people, it's not as scary as it sounds. Well, it might be. But
I've had so much success through the road of discipline. And we've seen the definition of discipline in the past with an unbroken battle formation. You just keep going. And people will ask us, even from our book, Pursue Real Hope, you guys jumped into the depth the depth of suffering. How could you share all of that and discover all these things and then share the depth of transformation? It's because we ventured further in our painful trials. We didn't stop and we didn't give up. And we didn't give up because of finances or time or other resources or family or fear or doubt or anything else. We kept going. That's the power of discipline. It's like a daily cycle. Wash, rinse, and repeat. Keep moving forward. And we've seen a lot of battles won victoriously because of our faith and because we stayed disciplined with it.
And sometimes for years and years.
Years and years.
Sometimes the outcome of that discipline doesn't show itself on the timeline that we want it to show.
Right.
But you know where I'm seeing it? It's not just in our lives, but it's in our kids and it's in our grandkids.
Yes, it is. It's generational.
You really see how, what mark, even if you're in pain, what mark do you want to leave in this world? And the power of discipline is truly, I believe it's genuinely a spiritual gift, and it's something that I've learned through my marriage with you. I've watched you because you tend to go for discipline in a way that you don't treat it like a punishment. How do you separate feeling punished from the word discipline? I really want to know, because I think in some situations, and even in my own mind, I can relate discipline to feeling more like a punishment. But how do you relate to it?
I look at discipline completely differently. It's almost like a vision about it. I see it as an uncomfortable opportunity to experience something better.
Wow.
Okay?
Okay, wait. Say that again.
I can't say it again.
An uncomfortable opportunity to what? See something better?
To experience
something
better.
That's
better,
really good.
Better living, better habits, fuller in love. It's an opportunity. So I'd rather take that opportunity so that I can be on the other side and be in front of pain. That is why I love discipline so much.
Good.
Let's hit number 5.
That's huge.
Let's hit number 5 is excellence. And this is a big one with me.
Well, I'll say the second part. Become a professional.
Yes. Become a professional with your life. Even if you have pain. Okay? The question is, who are you becoming in your pain? Are you becoming less than? Are you teetering back and forth between stability and instability? When do you reach the time? When do you reach the place? When do you reach the point of striving for value in your life?
I love that.
Okay? And this includes both material and immaterial things. I would say this, don't settle for less. Just because you feel like you're broken and you're less than less. You're not. You're important. No matter how much pain you're in, you have choices you can make about yourself, and a lot of it is based on how you see yourself. So I always say to you, we're professionals. Let's approach this as professionals, making good decisions, being ambassadors in Christ, striving in our faith, striving for value.
Totally.
That's what 2022 has to be about. We have to be one of those jet setters, those trailblazers that says we're not going to be imprisoned and locked down by fear.
Jet setters meaning we're going to own a jet and fly all over the place?
No, it means we're probably going to go to Costa Rica once or twice this next year.
Yeah,
okay?
But not a jet-setting life. You're talking much more deeply than that.
I'm talking, let's be above average.
Yeah.
Let's go for the max that God has for us. In other words, don't just have pretty prayers, pretty words in your prayers that make you look great and pharisaical and religious among a lot of people. Why don't you start praying big? God's put that on our hearts. When are you going to start praying bigger than your capabilities? Okay.
That's going out into that spacious place.
That is. So let's go ahead and take that approach.
Good.
Okay. Now, let's do a thought of the day, and we will conclude the first podcast of this year, number 73.
I love it. Well, I just have to say happy New Year to everybody that's listening. And if you don't know where to start, connect to your own story and realize you can change your pain story. I hope that these 5 ways have been helpful to you. I just want you to know that no matter where you are found in God. And your pain story is not the end. It's only the beginning of something very new for you. That is, you're going to be able to overcome it with God's love, His strength, His grace, and His hope over your life. And I pray that you find strength in the fact that you get the pen and paper out and start writing some new pages to your own story today. So make a good choice today.
How apropos for 2 years ago, we came up with the word of what would kind of maybe be an adjective to describe the season we were in 2019. And my word was found. You just mentioned found.
Yes.
And yours was beloved.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
I thought the word found was so profound to me. I wondered why you were looking so strongly at that word inside of you. And you said that you wanted to be found in your pain.
I did. I wanted to be found in a deeper way in my pain.
And privately, through my own prayer life, the word beloved was there because I think that I was struggling with my own identity until I was reminded that I am the beloved of God's.
Yes.
So together, beloved, you are found in God.
That's right. Well, let me conclude with my thought of the day, okay? I would say this. The time is now. In 2022, January 5th.
Yes.
The time is now to actually move from point A to point B with your life. Mm-hmm. Don't delay. Don't let pain just keep wearing you down. I know how tough it is, okay? And maybe in your prayer life, because a lot of people in pain are praying. They don't know what to pray. And perhaps pray to God to open the doors of opportunity even though you have pain.
Absolutely.
And pray for the strength to walk through those doors courageously because it's not easy. It's a battle. You're going to have opposition. You're going to feel like you're walking on sacred ground, but at other times it's going to feel like you're walking in a minefield. So the real truth is this. Continue to get started today and continue to walk out your faith.
Yes.
So that's the first podcast for this year.
Yes, it is.
And anything else you would like to say, Sharice?
I just want to say, please stay connected to us because we're growing our community. GordonandSharice.com is our website. You can catch up on previous podcasts there. You could really help us in our community by liking and subscribing, whether it's Spotify or Apple or it's YouTube or it's our Facebook community. We want you to be a part of this and keep growing with us. We're growing together.
So is 2022 a year of likes and clicks? Let's start doing it. Okay.
I think so, but more than that, we want to continue to connect with our community.
Well, this is a way to connect with our community.
Absolutely.
On social media. So we love y'all, and can't wait to see you next week.
Thank you so much. See you next time.